It was a dark and stormy night, the kind where the rain lashes against your windshield so hard that even the wipers at full speed barely help. Sarah had been driving for hours, her eyes heavy with exhaustion as the desolate highway stretched endlessly before her. She wasn't even sure why she'd agreed to take this late-night trip to visit her sister, but there she was, miles from the nearest town, with her gas gauge perilously close to empty. Just as panic began to settle in, Sarah spotted the dim glow of a neon sign cutting through the rain. GAS, it read in flickering letters. Beneath it, a rusty signpost declared the place Stanley's Gas and Service. Relieved, she turned into the station, her tires splashing through puddles on the cracked asphalt. The gas station was ancient, its pumps relics from a bygone era with faded paint and levers that looked like they hadn't been used in decades. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and flickered, casting a sickly yellow glow over the forecourt. Sarah pulled up to one of the pumps and got out, immediately hit by the smell of damp concrete and stale gasoline. She looked around for any sign of life. The small convenience store attached to the station had its lights on, but the windows were so grimy that she couldn't see inside. A faint bell jingled as she pushed the door open, and the smell of mildew mixed with something metallic hit her nose. The store was eerily quiet, the shelves sparsely stocked with dusty cans and faded candy wrappers. A single cashier stood behind the counter, his face hidden by the shadow of a grimy baseball cap. Hi, Sarah said hesitantly. I need to fill up. Pump 3 inches. The man didn't look up. Instead, he reached under the counter and slid her a clipboard with a form attached. Sign in, he said, his voice a gravelly monotone. Sign in? She repeated, puzzled. Why? Isn't this self-serve? Company policy, he muttered. Uneasy but too tired to argue, Sarah scribbled her name on the sheet. She couldn't help but notice that the page was nearly full of names, all written in different handwriting. Some of the entries were so old that the ink had faded to near illegibility. Thanks, the man said, finally looking up. His eyes were pale, almost white, and seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Sarah suppressed a shiver and quickly stepped back outside. She pumped her gas as quickly as she could, the feeling of being watched crawling up her spine. As she replaced the nozzle, she heard it, a faint whispering, just barely audible over the sound of the rain. Sarah froze, her breath hitching as she strained to hear. The whispers grew louder, though she couldn't make out the words, and they seemed to be coming from the direction of the store. Against her better judgment, she turned to look. The cashier was standing in the doorway now, his pale eyes fixed on her. Behind him, the interior of the store was no longer dim and dusty, but glowing with an unnatural red light. The whispers turned into a low, guttural growl that sent a chill through her entire body. You should leave, the man said, his voice now distorted, almost echoing. Now. Sarah didn't need to be told twice. She jumped into her car, started the engine, and peeled out of the station without looking back. Her heart pounded as she sped down the highway, the gas station quickly fading into the rain-soaked darkness. But the nightmare wasn't over. 10 minutes later, her headlights caught something in the road ahead. She slammed on the brakes, her tires screeching as the car skidded to a halt. Standing in the middle of the road was the cashier, his pale eyes glowing in the dark. Sarah screamed and threw the car into reverse, but before she could move, the man was suddenly beside her window, his face inches from the glass. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Instead, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent, filling her head until she thought she might go mad. Desperate, she floored the gas pedal, her car lurching backward before spinning around. She drove as fast as she could, her hands white-knuckled on the wheel. The whispers slowly faded, and when she dared to glance in the rearview mirror, the road behind her was empty. Hours later, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Sarah finally reached her sister's house. She stumbled inside, shaking and pale, and collapsed onto the couch. She tried to tell her sister what had happened, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she handed over the clipboard she'd inexplicably brought with her, the page of names fluttering slightly in the morning breeze. Her sister's face went pale as she read the list. Sarah, she said, her voice trembling, these are missing persons. All of them. When they reported the gas station to the police, they were met with confused looks. There hasn't been a gas station on that stretch of road for decades, the officer said. It burned down in the 70s. Everyone inside didn't make. When they reported the gas station to the police, they were met with confused looks. There hasn't been a gas station on that stretch of road for decades, the officer said. It burned down in the 70s. Everyone inside didn't make it. Sarah never drove that highway again, but sometimes late at night, she swore she could still hear the whispers.